Okie dokie.
Good evening, everyone. It's back.
Yo.
It's Tuesday. I am Kronos. You heard Dez. We are not your average streamers, and we're back for another thrilling episode of Yakuza Kiwami. Let's see if we can do better at the dating game this week.
Oh, hey, you're not sharing your screen with me.
That's right, I'm not. Let me see if I can fix that. Google Meet's been having some real issues for this, so I may not be able to, but I'll try.
Well, we can always go back to our old standby Skype, which has never betrayed us.
Not once.
Never. Never been an issue.
Okay, so there you go. You should see it now.
I see the game's,
yeah,
like little trailer thingy.
Which is what's playing, so you see the right thing.
I don't hear it, but whatever.
Yeah, I actually don't hear it either. I am confident that it is actually streaming because all the evidence is that it is streaming.
It is streaming.
It's streaming the audio, but I cannot hear the audio because something about the setup that we've gone through with a new program, which is
significantly louder than either of us.
Well, I can fix that. It shouldn't be. My balance seems to be okay. Oh wait, that's you. Let me fix that.
You're probably okay, but I'm too quiet, I think.
I'll crank you up a bit more.
I guess I could have just turned myself up.
Yeah, you have some room to turn yourself up. I think everything should be adequate now. The game is maybe a little high still. Let's take it down another notch. But yeah, we got some new software, giving us some new awesome features, which is great. But it does mean that until I figure this thing out a little bit more, I said do not disturb. What the heck?
I'm using the wrong microphone, so...
Apparently I switched myself to appear offline, not do not disturb. Not quite the same thing. Let's go ahead and get started. I have saved very close to where we were, so hopefully we've lost no real progress, and you can see I did that earlier today, because nothing like procrastination. Not that I really had a whole lot of chance. I have not had a time to play games. The only games that I've been playing of late have been stream games. I streamed the Bean Dive last week because we had lost the progress, and that was a lot of games, but not a ton of hours. And I've also streamed Man Medan on Saturday, but outside of that, it's really just been some here and there, play a couple of minutes of Gems of War when I get a chance kind of thing. What I'm saying is, I've been busy, and work has been busy for me too.
Yeah, I played Man Medan, which that was intense.
Frying pan!
And I played so much Stardew Valley last night and today, because I was listening to this book that was pitched to me as a bunch of Karen's slay vampires, and look,
that sounds really
really
weird.
Need to get better at pitching books accurately.
Yeah, because something about that is
a bunch of Karen slaying vampires could have been hilarious.
Yeah,
it was, but this was like full of social commentary on classism and racism and sexism and vampires as like metaphors for beatnik outsiders and how they have friction with gated communities or closed communities. And look, that's a type of book that there are a lot of circumstances under which I want to read it, but Not if I am thinking I'm going to read a bunch of Karen's slay vampires.
Yeah, you were expecting Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and you got something very, very different.
Yeah, like the grown-up version, the with kids and responsibilities and drives a minivan, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
And somewhere along the line, she got entitled.
It was just not that. So, yeah, this definitely is. Part of it's a marketing problem, but I also think part of it is that just people uncritically latch onto and then regurgitate the marketing, even if they've already read the book and should know that that's just not.
People have a hard time thinking for themselves about a lot of stuff, so hearing, especially a well-crafted pitch item, I don't think that's necessarily what this was, but it has the potential, elevator pitch, Karen's Slay Vampires works, right? That's a thing.
That's a great elevator pitch.
Right.
I would buy that.
But then you get something that isn't quite that. So it's frustrating.
Yeah. And listen, Aaron's slaying vampires that also had all of that commentary happening in the background could also have been something. But this was one of those where like the subtext is more like text. So
it's not well enough written to handle the weight that the author put on it.
Yeah, like I would say it was a fine book. Like I'll give other books by Grady Hendrix a try. That's the author. He wrote a book called My Best Friend's Exorcism that is written from the point of view of high school students who think during the Satanic Panic in the 80s that their friend got possessed.
Mm-hmm.
It's a horror novel, and I've heard that's very intense. And this was set in the late 80s, early 90s in the South, and from the point of view of the parents. So, it'll probably be fine, but.
So why are we going to meet Date's daughter? It seems like a really weird thing for us to do, even from the perspective of this, frankly, very odd game.
She probably has some intelligence for us.
I mean, we're going to go find out about this girl that he's been trying to meet or something? And that's going to explain everything? Why has he been drinking so much? I mean, I figured he was just drinking so much because he was upset with his life.
Something bad happened to him a couple weeks ago, and I don't remember what it was because...
He got demoted from his job.
Oh, was that it?
Yeah, he felt it was demotion. He was taken off of one set of major crimes and put on a different set of major crimes.
Oh, right.
And apparently that caused so much stress that his wife and kid left him.
Yeah, seems like a huge overreaction. But whatever. Cultural differences, I guess.
Cultural differences are kind of complicated.
Which, I mean, we did read an article about how in Japan, because they don't have no-fault divorce,
yes,
you can hire people. Well, you can hire people to do all kinds of things. You can hire people to date your spouse, and so then get evidence that your spouse is cheating on you because of that. Or if your spouse is cheating on you, but you want to save your marriage, you can hire people to break that up.
Right, but it doesn't actually work like that, because what they do to break up the one relationship is they get them involved in a different relationship. It's like,
well, and they have this whole complicated thing where it's like, let's say, my husband wants me to cheat on him so that he can get out of the marriage without having to pay me a ton of money or whatever. And so, the process would be they would first do as much research on what I like and whatever as possible, and then they find what they think is the perfect girlfriend for me, as in confidant, and then she would run into me at the gym or something and
it's all
try
acting,
to be friendly.
right? It's what they think you want and what you think you want, which may not actually be what you need, but
right?
they
And
play
so
on
then
your tights.
Ideally you then become friends with this woman, and then she figures out from being friends with you what you want in a man, or what you think you want in a man, or what you say you want in a man. This is where it gets really complicated with human psychology. And then they try to find that for you, you know. And if you're already cheating, then they'll have like a third person on the case, or third and fourth and fifth person on the case, who are also trying to do the same thing with the person you're cheating with. So like they could simultaneously be trying to lure the person the spouse is cheating with away from the spouse, while also trying to like form relationships around the spouse to bring the spouse back to the marriage. And it's like this whole complicated thing costs a ton of money.
Yep.
And is rarely successful.
It's months and months of private investigative work, and they bring in multiple people who have to be specially trained, or at least know the rules and the laws, because if you get yourself involved in some of these relationships, which is how this actually came to our attention, because the rules are you don't actually get involved with the client, right? You can't sleep with the client. You can't actually fall in love with the client. That's really bad. And one of these people hired to break up a relationship fell in love with the client and murdered somebody so that it would be okay.
And I don't remember if they murdered the other person they were cheating with, or if they murdered the spouse.
The client.
I think it was the other person they were cheating with.
Yeah, I think that's correct, but I don't remember the details. It's been a little while since I read that.
But there was a murder. There was a murder.
It went downhill fast, Yeah,
and there's been a book written about the murder, and the murder is fiction, but the research done for the book was so meticulous that like a Japanese legal organization gave the writer of the book an honorary degree or something, because their understanding of this complex case law was so good.
It's pretty impressive.
And so well done in the book. So, but the book, it's interesting because the book is not well reviewed at my library. Like on my library's app, it has maybe 3 stars.
That's
out of 5.
Surprisingly low, yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like maybe actual meticulous attention to legal detail is not what people want in a murder mystery.
Well, it's not actually a murder mystery. It's a true crimes thing. And attention to detail matters there, but for whatever reason, perhaps because of the cultural differences, it's just not appealing as a story. Or like
well,
it's
I
too
don't
strange.
think that this book is true crime. I think this book is a fiction based on or inspired by the real case. So it's like more like, I don't know, probably inspired by actual events would be its tagline in the theater.
Oh man, that one hurt. I dodged all the easy ones and I got hit by the hard one. They always punch me right after I pick up a weapon. It's like, give me a little space, guys. I want to hit you with something. I'm slow.
It's so rude of these people who are trying to kill you, not to make it easier for you to kill them.
I'm playing on easy, remember?
Oh right, you are playing on easy.
So it would be totally okay.
I mean, I guess what must be happening is that your elite gamer skills, because you're a gamer,
I'm just pushing buttons too fast. That's what it is.
Yeah, you're just not meshing with easy mode. Like, you just can't, you're just too beyond it.
Get on my level, Kiryu. So that's an interesting situation, and it's you think you were mentioning that this could be that this exists is an indication that the no-fault divorce situation that we have in most Western countries may not be as bad as we're oftentimes going to complain that it is, because when you get married, you shouldn't be getting divorced, and having no-fault divorces could encourage people to divorce for less significant reasons. You obviously have to have situations
It depends on what you think of marriage as.
Right.
So, from a legal standpoint, all marriage is a social contract. It's a legal version of a social contract that's putting a group of rights regarding the distribution of property and the custody of children that's kind of just consistent from couple to couple, right? That's all it is.
Well, it's definitely more complicated than that, but that is a huge element to that.
From a legal standpoint, It's just to codify and make consistent kind of the contracts between these two people, right?
Unless there's prenups.
Yeah, prenups make an additional contract on top of like whatever the like basic the basic contract of your state is. So if you find the state's contract to be insufficient for your needs, you can add an additional contract on top of it. And so there you go. And that's what a prenup is for. And then, I mean, that's really all that it is from a legal point of view. So if that's the case, then, you know, yes, people write contracts that are binding for 99 years, you know, more, whatever, forever. But those can be mutually dissolved, right? Like
yes.
If the people are like, oh, we're over it, then they can just say, hey, we're over it. We're going to write a new contract, dissolving this contract. Everything's cool. And if you don't have no-fault divorce, what you're doing is you're removing that ability to nullify the contract. And I don't see how it's legally helpful. So that you get all these like weird scenarios where people are, I mean, Japan is probably unique in this whole hiring of...
Japan is unique. We can probably just leave it at that.
But, you know, in the U.S. you have private eyes trying to, like, dig up dirt and this, that, and the other. And so, like...
Well, again, just because there is no fault divorce doesn't mean that that's the way that everyone wants to go. That having a at-fault divorce is more convenient because of how the contracts break out in the legal system at that point.
Well, and especially if there is a prenup. So, because prenups are usually have quite a number of clauses related to fidelity and the like. So, so you know, I just think, you know, all no-fault divorce really is the ability to dissolve a contract. Now, the difference would be is that in order to dissolve a contract, that's not a unilateral decision in most other contracts.
You do have to have some sort of agreement, probably.
With marriage, you know, really for no-fault divorce to be like all other forms of contract law or most other forms of contract law, you'd have to both thumbs up the dissolution. And there'd have to be some kind of process for one person fighting it. My guess is a lot of states probably do have procedures for that.
Oh yeah, this is something that happens in every potential combination. So we've got this one down. We may not have a good answer, but we have an answer.
I mean, I had a friend who was divorcing their spouse, and it ended up being really kind of interesting where the judge intervened. So my friend's spouse had a prescription drug addiction and embezzled 6 figures from my friend's business to buy drugs. And my friend found out when a sheriff came to put a lien on the house because no property taxes had been paid in however long. And then that's when my friend went through all of their financial records and was like, what the fuck? So they started divorce proceedings pretty much immediately. And the spouse fought them, which of course, because they had no income and no money and no way to support themselves. And
a drug addiction.
Now no way to buy drugs. But the judge intervened. And the judge said to my friend, how it looks to the court is if you're trying to divorce your spouse because your spouse has an illness. Which I totally disagreed with. Because there's a difference between having an illness and embezzling 6 figures. Like... So yeah, they were ordered to suspend divorce proceedings and go to all this court-ordered counseling and everything, so that the judge was sure they'd really tried. And I was just like, what in the fuck?
Well, I guess we got that one right, so I get to get the information. Yes, I know. Were you gonna tell me anything else? No, you're not. I ran around this building like 3 times looking for the entrance. It was kind of frustrating. So how much of this story do you think we're going to get done tonight? Because it seems to fluctuate from week to week.
Well, I mean, it probably depends on how hard you're working at the story.
That's a fair point. There's so
how much you're running
extra
in circles.
Stuff. Well, and not just running in circles, but there's all the extra stuff. Like, how many times does Mojima attack me? How many times do I get hit by these street brawlers? Why are you practicing your golf shot
even if you
street?
just only focused on the main story and worked as hard as possible at that, it's still going to take, hours, like 10 weeks.
Additional or total?
I mean, I don't think we've actually accomplished much.
We're in chapter 6.
So
I don't know how many chapters the game has.
All right, let me.
It feels like I'd say we're a third of the way through. That feels about right. So I'd say maybe it has 20 chapters.
Okay, so there's 13 chapters in the game.
So we're almost halfway through. Giant traffic cone. Well, I guess Majima's not under that one because he'll be hiding under one of these somewhere, because I was told he was, but not that one because I used that one in this fight. Okay, can you stop being successful at hitting me, please? Thank you.
So the average of all styles of play is 32.5 hours, and the main story plus some extras is 35 hours. So
that's like 11, 12 weeks of us play.
Let's say you're halfway, 18 hours left, and that's about 10 weeks. So
yeah, alrighty then.
Basically, we'll be playing this until the heat death of the universe. Oh, wait, this is Yakuza Kiwami 2. I mean, I doubt they're that different, but let's just go check the other one. Yeah, I mean, it's 33 hours versus 35 hours, so...
You think host clubs just let dudes waltz in without a paying lady? I read this as pretty lady the first time, which goes to show something, but paying lady. I'll pay.
Yeah, you gotta pay the lady. Don't be such a deadbeat.
I'll pay for 2. Just let me in.
Alright, so we played Man of Medan over the weekend.
Which we did. Yes, we did.
What did you think about that? You've now played 2 supermassive games.
They're remarkably similar.
Yes.
I thought Until Dawn was better.
Yes, I agree.
But it wasn't bad. It was enjoyable.
Until Dawn clearly had a bigger budget.
Which is impressive, because you'd think that with the success that Until Dawn was, they'd be like, yeah, we can throw more money at this next one. I think it was perhaps they were trying to rush it out, and they didn't put as much time into it, rather than a budget issue.
Well, the other difference is that Until Dawn was paid for by Sony and commissioned by Sony. So they weren't they being Supermassive Games weren't necessarily footing the bill for it in the way that they were footing the bill for this one. Which is not a Sony thing, so obviously.
Well, this is gonna get ugly fast. We're gonna have to go beat up on Date now. Now you want to play my father? I mean, she's kind of got a point. He sobered up pretty quick, by the way. I mean, when plot demanded him to do so.
何よあんたたち
さや
ちょっと離して
うるせえおい何やってんだなんだおっさんその
Now we
子の
killed
あ
half the
この
people,
女はな
Yeah,
which
well,
is the wrong number of people to kill.
Yes.
You should kill all of them or none of them.
there are achievements for a variety of things, and the combination that we got was not one of the achievement killing combinations. The achievement killing combinations are kill all, kill none, kill all the men, kill all the women, and a couple other things even, I think. But the one we got where we killed Conrad and Brad.
We had one man and one woman left at
Right.
the end.
Well, does Julie's death count?
I'm sure
as
it does, because that was based on a decision I made very early on in the game.
the bends?
So,
Okay.
the bends. If she died from decompression sickness, I can only assume that's from me drinking the beers earlier.
Well, I gave you the thumbs up on that one when we were playing. It's like, yeah, I think that was the right choice because of how Alex was, messing about. Because he was drinking, right? So
Yes, he was drinking. He was being a total sexist about the whole thing.
it was really very unnecessary. So yeah.
Yeah.
Smack him down. Especially,
Yeah.
you don't treat your future wife like this. You don't treat your
No.
wife like this. You gotta learn this lesson now before it gets serious.
Just a heads up, don't police how much any women you know are drinking unless they're your children. And
Or it's your spouse and they genuinely have a problem, and there's an agreement that that's something that you should be doing.
yeah, but even that is like
Even that is fraught.
not your responsibility, and your spouse needs to learn how to deal with it on their own. But
Yeah. It's not your responsibility, but it is also your responsibility, so it's complicated. It's definitely not the clear-cut situation, though.
Yeah, but I mean, just as a general rule, if you're an alcoholic, you are responsible for your alcoholism, and if you need help with that, you should go to AA.
Or another source that is equally good.
Something similar to AA that is not AA, which would be, I mean, there's basically AA, so.
Yeah, AA is the most most successful. So, oh, I need to stop getting stabbed, please. How do you still have health left? Oh, because you're that guy. I thought you were the guy that had. I thought I was almost done with the fight, so I was like, I'm not going to use a potion. No, I need to use a potion.
Mr.
As
Des
I
just
get
took a
stabbed.
picture of the cats peacefully sitting next to each other on the same footstool. Instead of being huge fucking assholes.
Like they always
which is
are.
what they pretty much always are.
Because they're cats. So that was cool. Date held him for me, and I smashed him over the head with a plastic brick.
Oh man, can't wait till Animal Crossing comes.
お前らのボスと話をさせ
Although I have heard this Animal Crossing is kind of bad, but
We're getting an Animal Crossing on Xbox. It's
which
bad,
one?
but is this what you're talking about? Because there's more Animal Crossings coming, but this is the one that's coming to Xbox. It's like the Dash version.
No, well, I mean, I don't know what's going on with that. I'm getting the Animal Crossing New Horizon. Because it's on sale at Walmart right now. And it's one of those you have to put it in your cart to see the price. So it's a Walmart sale, not a Nintendo sale, and it's really funny because
ちょっと見
it's only $10 off, right? But
まさかさやちゃんが
that's the most you're ever going to see any
翔太の番
Nintendo produced game
ホストが店に
at,
金
off. So they have like Mario Kart and Mario Party and Smash Bros and all of that. All of those are about $10 off at Walmart right now, but you do have to add them to your cart,
うちの店は
and you do have to buy the physical versions.
翔太はどうして今日は早番だったんでもう上がりました
But I just bought Animal Crossing. That's the only one I bought.
気がかりです
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be careful when you're even buying on sale that you don't overbuy, and end up in a situation, as of course we do, where we have dozens or hundreds of games in a backlog with full intention to play them, but never enough time to do so because we're human beings and have limited time. Yeah, I've done that a few times.
Well, yeah, do other things.
Yeah, we can't just play video games all the time.
Yeah, like this week, I did a lot of random shit. I watched a South Korean adaptation of a British historical fiction novel by Park Chan-wook, who did Old Boy or The Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance and Lady Vengeance, that trilogy. And I just will unequivocally say that it's the best adaptation I've ever watched of any book ever. And that includes the Swedish language version of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which I think is an excellent adaptation and may even be an improvement over the book. But this one is still better than that one.
Did you enjoy The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo?
So, I don't... my problem with The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is all the Nazi shit. I just couldn't. I just don't care. Like, I'm so sorry if this is a cultural difference and it's like a much bigger deal in Sweden. I'm sure it's a much bigger deal. Or if it's like it's a bigger deal in Sweden and then Stieg Larsson is like specifically obsessed with it or whatever. But like there were a lot of pages upon pages upon pages about the history of like Nazis in Sweden that I just didn't need in a murder mystery.
Well,
so that was one issue I had with it, for sure.
In books like that, I can't walk fast enough here if I don't drink a potion. You need to fill the pages. It's a long enough book, but all those details flesh out the world that he's trying to build, but also fill up a lot of word count. I mean, a lot of word count. So...
Well, I mean, the book's fucking huge. It doesn't need to be that big.
Well, then that's an editor's job to say, okay, look, you're making a point here, but maybe this isn't the point that you need to be making. Let's trim some of this somewhere, and this Nazi stuff can go.
Like, not to be an asshole, but if the point is Nazis are bad, like, again, this could be a cultural difference thing, but I assume that even in Sweden they think that. So, 465 pages is what it is. I feel like he could have cut 100 pages and people still would have thought it was long enough. Now, that being said, he's also doing like a lot of things. Because on top of that, there's the whole like vendetta with him and the guy that he wrote the article about, that he went to court over and got disgraced over at the beginning, and then like gets new evidence and then disgraces him at the end and redeems himself or whatever.
Right.
And it's like, I don't think we need all of these plots either. But all that being said, I read the first 3 books in the series, and I thought they were fine.
Were there only 3 because Larsson died after writing 3? Stieg Larsson died after writing the 3rd book, right?
I'm not sure that's exactly it. First off, he's dead before any of them are published.
Right, and before any of them are published.
So I don't know if it's known exactly how much he wrote, or his editor he worked with finished, or what, or his wife or his estate or whatever. I think there's some murkiness over where Stieg Larsson left off and somebody else.
It's not something I've spent a lot of time looking at, so.
Yeah, there was some scandal. People were suing each other. I don't know. There was something.
Very human. Unless it's set up nicely,
okay,
like
so it's
Wheel of Time guy.
Confirmed that he wrote the manuscripts for the first 2 100% himself. That's all that is known for sure. Is what it seems like. Okay, so yeah, like he's an activist of some kind in regards to hating the extreme right, which, great, yes. And so he did a ton of independent research into right-wing extremism in Sweden. He wrote a book about right-wing extremism in Sweden, so it's obviously a personal thing, or something he's personally interested in. Yeah, I just didn't need, I don't know, I just don't think I needed that many Nazis. And then the second book, or the third book, one of them has a motorcycle, an outlaw biker gang in it, and I was like, is this a thing in Europe? Do you have a lot of outlaw biker gangs in Europe? Again, cultural differences. Don't know a lot about Sweden. Wouldn't have thought it was a place with a lot of outlaw biker gangs, but I don't know. I don't know.
I will go with my opinion on this one, which is that I read the first book only, and I found it to be tiresome.
Yeah.
So I did not enjoy my time, and I did not seek out more, and I didn't watch the movie. I was like, I read the book. I didn't enjoy the book. Why am I going to like this movie about this book that I didn't like?
Well, the movie's definitely better. In my opinion, I've seen the Swedish language and the British and the English language with like James Bond. You can watch either of them. It's not like one movie like brings significantly more to the table in some way than the other. So if you have a tolerance for subtitles, I would just watch the Swedish language one.
I assume you're speaking that in a broad sense, not at me.
Yes, not at you. I assume you have a tolerance for subtitles.
We're playing a game that has subtitles.
That is a thing people complain about a lot. So.
I understand. People are weird, but no, subtitles are. I'd rather have, especially when it's in a foreign language and originally developed in that language, I'd rather have the subtitles because the original portrayal, the acting, it matters, and the intonation that the actors give in that language, it matters. And even when you replace it with very talented translators and very talented actors in the English language, you lose stuff.
Yeah, I mean, localization and translation typically, I would say, are either it's not going to get better or it's going to get worse. There are very few circumstances under which you get an improvement, although there are some notable exceptions. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, for example, says that the English translation of 100 Years of Solitude is better than the original, in his opinion. And, he wrote the original, so so that's an example. And then I think Bolsonaro in Portugal, he thought his...
That was a really rough spot. I got caught in a corner there. Alright, let's do this. I think there are going to be examples. Again, I think you're spot on. It can be just as good if you're really lucky. And most of the time, it's going to be worse. And a lot of times, it's going to be just a little bit worse. So it's not going to make a huge difference. But why have even a little bit worse? Why go through that when you could just have it? And yeah, you got to read, you got to work. An argument that I heard that is fair is we spend so much of our lives these days reading words on screens that continuing to do that for our entertainment seems silly. But I actually like it. It's, when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, I guess. Except that, a lot of it depends on the words that you're reading. Which, to bring it back around to the girl with the dragon tattoo, those are not words I would enjoy reading again. Alright, we made it out of that fight. Choto's in trouble. Have we lost Des?
普通の女子高生なんだな。そうしてると。
やだ、じろじろ見ないでよ。お父さん。
I honestly can't tell. Looks like we're here.
さや、俺はダメな親父だ。10年前、お母さんとお前から逃げ出した。だからお前に何も言えた義理じゃないと分かってる。でもな、それでも一つだけ約束してくれないか。自分をもっと大切にしてくれ。さやが幸せになるためにもっと自分自身を愛してくれ。それでもお前が苦しんだり危ない目にあったら俺は守ってやる。守ってやるから。
分かった、分かったから泣かないでよ。
キリュウ。
Alright, we'll have to make do without, I guess. Go for a little while longer, see if we can move the plot along. Yay, we got them to make up. All it takes is violence. Violence solves everything.
課長、何か。
ああ、ちょっと話がね。
何のお話でしょうか。
Yeah, what are we doing? We're in trouble.
君は独断である事件の捜査を進め、その後のキャリアを滞らせた。二度目がないことは分かっているね。
ええ、まあ。
単刀直入に言おう。今君が調べていることからすぐに手を引くんだ。
どの件でしょう。
交渉の余地はない。
Corruption in the police force.
今すぐ手を引きなさい。話は以上だ。
Never.
失礼します。
おい、伊達君。今のが伊達刑事かね。
はい。
どうだ、須藤君。
誘拐犯なんですね。伊達さんと一緒にいるのは。
そうだ。依頼主は明かせないが捜索願いが出ている。上から直接頼まれた異例の任務だが、一家で引き受けてもらえないか。
わかりました。
Hey, Des. That sounded good. Are you back? You're back! Kind of.
Yep, back. I just have to get back to my normal microphone and whatnot.
Good. That was a very boring couple of seconds that we had you gone. We finished the chapter, so we're in chapter 7 now. Popped that achievement for completing chapter 6.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, I don't, we were just talking about how, you know, girl with a dragon tattoo, 3 out of 5, too many Nazis.
Just like the rest of the world.
It's just basically, look, if you have too many Nazis, I'm only gonna give you so many props.
Even if they're bad guys, even if you're beating them up, if you have any of them, there's a sign that something has gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, like, again, you know, I'm sure that there are cultural differences. I'm sure this is a much more sensitive issue in Europe. Like, I'm sure it is. But, you know, it was just like a lot. It was like, he was like, look, I published a book on Nazis, so you're going to hear about them.
I
And then
wrote
they
these
were also
words. They will be published.
weirdly religious too. Like there was just so much. There was just so much going on. He was just Stieg Larsson was doing the most at all times. You know.
Like he realized he only had a short period of time left to live. And they put it all into his books.
Maybe.
Don't think so.
Yeah,
Honestly, but.
Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. Yeah, I think I like I said, I think the movie's an improvement because it cuts out all of that kind of stuff. You know, and like sequences that are incredibly long in the book, like him reading a bunch of files while he's on a train to go chase down a lead or whatever. Those are just he just like, you know, he's like, I've got to go talk to X, and then in the next scene he's there, right? Like so, because so it just cuts out a lot of all that kind of stuff. Now The Handmaiden is a good adaptation in a different sense because what it does is it transports the location of everything going down, both in time and space, but keeps all of the major themes and then utilizes the cultural differences of the new location to layer in additional themes that are totally synergistic with the themes explored in the original novel and don't, you know, they only add to what the author was exploring in the original novel. And then cuts out some of the plot fatigue. So like the original book's in 3 parts, the movie's in 2. And yeah, you only need 2. You know.
So, if my theories are correct, then our gal is dead. Not just our gal's sister, because I was playing that they were, you know.
So is your theory that the sister is the gal, or that
Yes.
they're both dead?
That they're the same person. That she was
Okay.
traumatized by the rape, and she bore the child, who is the daughter of the girl we have running around with us. But that experience was still filled with so much shame that she couldn't admit to it being her child. And so she comes in as auntie and makes this fictitious other person who is the actual mother. But then she's playing both roles a lot of times. So she has to leave the child behind in the orphanage while she sets up the bar to make money, because she also stole the 10 billion yen or whatever, right? So that was my theory. That's a fine plot. But now we have a confirmed body that definitely matches. So if my theory is right, the one person who was both is dead, and that is remarkably unsatisfying and as a narrative structure, so I don't think I'm correct anymore. Props to them if I'm still right, because you know that means they're doing something unexpected here. And largely, the story has been plodding along very expected lanes, I'd say. All right, Mizuki is the sister who I think is not actually a real person, but was Yumi, was her name, all along. Yay, more pocket tissues. I need to visit a store and get more potions because I'm running a little low.
So what you're saying is Yumi is dead right now.
If my interpretation
That's your theory.
That was my working theory, was that Yumi and Mizuki were the same person, and one is dead, for sure, which means both are dead. And if that is the case, then Yumi is dead, and that would be very unsatisfactory for Kiryu's story. And Kiryu is our protagonist, so I don't think that is how it's going to go, because I don't think that the authors and directors of this story have the balls necessary to pull that off.
Well, I mean, the Japanese are more likely to
Sure, they could surprise me. I think that would be
major characters.
It would be reasonable because of, again, cultural differences. We killed Eris.
Like, it's like the difference between the endings of Infernal Affairs and The Departed. And I mean, that's Chinese, but again, it's still cultural differences. The Chinese ending, I think, is much more interesting.
God, it'd have to be better. The Departed sucked so bad.
Well, I could spoil the Chinese ending for you, although it's totally worth watching Infernal Affairs, and it's much shorter than The Departed. So.
Also good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not. It's been a long time since I watched The Departed, but I remember it being. This was back when Netflix was still on disc, and I got the disc mailed to me, kind of time-wise. So it's been a while.
Right. Yeah, it's been a while. The Infernal Affairs and The Departed are very similar. I mean, extremely so throughout. To where if you've seen Infernal Affairs and you watch The Departed, you kind of are like, okay, I know what's going on pretty much at all times. But there's a character arc that goes a different direction in the Hong Kong version, and which then affects the outcome of the ending and radically changes the ending.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much more interesting and satisfying in a lot of ways. It's appalling to sort of like the traditional way we would want a crime movie of this type to end in the West, which is probably why Martin Scorsese changed the ending. But it's much more interesting. And I think more beautiful, or a better message, or it's just more, yeah. Because it's the difference between like individual and collective. You know, there's an aspect to the Hong Kong ending where individualism is subsumed by the collective, which of course makes total sense. But it's just makes for a better ending, I think. Whereas in the American ending, it's individualism. Of course, it's like person A kills person B, person C is mad about it, gotta get revenge, you know. And then that's not how it ends in Infernal Affairs.
So many gangsters around here. Holy cow. There's street punks and Yakuza and ruffians and goons.
Well, and it's like an 8 square mile zone or something. Like, it's not that big. It's just packed with criminals.
Like, every criminal in all of Japan is here. And I've beaten up most of these guys once or twice already, and they keep coming back for more.
Alright, how big is Camarocho? 2 square miles.
Yeah, 8 square miles seem big to me, but...
Yeah. Well, I have a real problem with Camarocho because there's a neighborhood in Miami, Calle Ocho, so I always have trouble remembering that it's Camarocho, not Calle Ocho.
I will never figure this thing out. It's not a word that makes sense to my ears at this point.
Calle Ocho is 8th Street, and it's just a neighborhood in Miami that the most happening part is 8th Street. That's all. So CalleOcho. But anyway, like, Camarocho sounds like similar enough to it.
Sure.
They both have Ocho in it. So I'm always like, wait, what? And then that's where the 8 is going to creep in.
I want to pet the cat. Oh, the cat's disappeared.
Uh-oh.
You scared the cats away.
Stupid goons scaring cats.
Well, I'm just going to punch the air now. That's how angry I am.
Now. But yeah, I'm not like a purist in terms of the book was better. Like, I would never have a t-shirt that said the book was better, because I don't believe
the better thing was better. It's usually the book. but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, like, I'm not gonna pretend like it's 50-50. I definitely usually think the book is the better portrayal of whatever, but that does not mean that there haven't been some real standout adaptations. And so I'm making my sister watch The Handmaiden, which is the South Korean adaptation of Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. And you should totally, if you liked Fingersmith, you should totally watch The Handmaiden. You can still be, it's still interesting. And also, if you haven't seen Fingersmith or read Fingersmith, it doesn't matter. Still a good movie regardless. But so I'm making her watch it, and just, like, I kept telling her this is the best adaptation I've ever seen, and she kept thinking it was going to be a Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale. And so she kept like refusing to watch it because she just didn't believe that an adaptation of that could be mind-blowingly amazing.
I can see that. I mean, it is what it is, and if you want transformative new stuff, it's not going to happen from that.
No, it's not my favorite book, but its genre is one of my least favorite genres already. So, so when we finally got to the end of the first part of the movie, she was like, "Yeah, I just couldn't get it out of my head that was about the Handmaid's Tale, even though you told me it wasn't." And so I was very confused by what was going down in this movie. I was like, "Well,
you would be."
And then my sister was talking with Mr. Dez in the kitchen earlier, and she was telling him that we watched the most uncomfortable sex scene that's ever been filmed. And that it's so uncomfortable that no one could find it appealing. It's impossible. And he was like, I mean, I don't know, like, I'm not sure I buy this. And so she's like, just ask your wife. And I was like, oh no, it's terrible. It's so uncomfortable and awkward, and it's just cringy. I mean, my sister covered her face at one point because she literally couldn't look at the screen anymore. There's no male gaze in the camera at all. Like the camera clearly finds it is awkward to be there as you do as the audience member.
That sounds remarkably awkward, and I don't even understand it at all.
Yeah, no, it was so awkward. It was so awkward. She's like, it's like watching two people who've never even heard of sex try to have sex. So not like that they haven't had sex themselves, but they haven't, and also they've never heard of it.
Like Blue Lagoon style, huh?
I mean, more awkward, but even the sex scene at Blue Lagoon isn't awkward, right?
No, it's not. That's the thing. It should have been,
and it ought to be. It should have been
very
awkward.
Very awkward.
Yes, should have taken a few tries to sort everything out.
And then it's just the human elements in there make it so complicated for the viewer that it should have been awkward. It should have been awkward to watch it, in addition to the awkward mechanics.
Yeah. So it was definitely interesting. Well, and it's just really rare to see a sex scene shot for a movie where the camera's not lingering, And again, I think this is a stylistic choice by the director that totally fits with what's going on with the characters. So it's really good that he stuck to it, I guess. Are we getting our tattoo refreshed or added to?
Refreshed. So apparently it has faded in 10 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, they can. This guy should probably be wearing gloves, but...
He's an expert. He's done this so many times, he doesn't need to wear gloves anymore.
I think they still wear gloves, though. now.
They ought to, especially in the pandemic.
Because I watched a documentary on the Irizumi tattooing, which is the like needles on the stick that he's using, and they had gloves on account of the blood that's everywhere when you're tattooing someone.
It's a fairly delayed process, especially
Yeah.
going old school like this.
Well, and part of the documentary was the people who were getting it were talking about how, like, mostly if there was a period of time where only Yakuza got this type of tattoo. So there's a taboo in society over people having it because of that association.
Because they don't want to be marked as a Yakuza.
Right. Or, hi, Tiny Cat.
Come on, Tiny Cat. We got an hour. You are early.
Oh, God. Oh.
Tiny Cat, don't do it!
Tiny Cat, why? Tiny Cat's trying to choke me. Okay, something horrible has happened. Okay, I survived. Whew. I didn't think I was gonna survive, so... But Tiny Cat somehow, like, knocked the cord that extends my headphone wire off the table, and then it got stuck in, like, my chair, and I was, like, getting choked out. She probably did it on purpose.
Smart cat. It's like, I got this. I know how to make this pay. You're not paying me attention? You'll see. You'll see when you're dead.
You'll see. You'll be sorry. You'll be sorry you didn't love me more when I'm eating your eyeballs.
Just like that bird was to Conrad.
Yeah. Stop biting me. Thank you.
Poor Conrad. I almost liked him.
Yeah. I mean, he never got a chance to be a full person, so...
どうしたのはるかちゃんおじさんさっきお母さんのこと調べに行ってたんでしょなのに
Hi,
なんで
buddy.
連れて行ってくれないの
Because it's dangerous out there. Do you know how many ruffians I've beat up along the way?
ここに遊びに来たんじゃない
Sorry, Haruka. We got some awkward
Haruka
conversations.
doesn't hear excuses, okay?
Yeah, she's a hard ass. She is
She
working
just
me.
needs you to be better at your friggin' job.
Look, I am decent at hitting people. Oh! See? I'm decent at hitting people. Oh my god!
Wow. Wow.
お母さんのこと教えてよ
That's not okay.
でしょね
Well,
え教えてよ
we're gonna have to call the Japanese version of CPS now
のお母さんが
うるせえ言うな
and report you.
はるか今は俺を信じてくれ
I just need you to believe in me after I punched you in the face.
私だって信じたいでも
I wanna believe you,
私にはお母
but
さんしかいな
my
いの
mom's all I
おじさ
have.
んが勝手にするって言うなら
If you're just gonna do whatever you want, then I'm gonna do the same.
Smart
さよ
kid.
なら
Yeah, I guess she just had enough of your shit, man.
She is remarkably independent for a 10-year-old or 9-year-old.
You know, she just wasn't coddled the way
Orphan
kids are
kids.
these days.
Yeah. Had to grew up tough orphanage and
It's like that tribe in Peru where you have to know how to use a machete by the time you're friggin' 3 or something. These
this is why
researchers-
all the armies have child soldiers.
researchers went down there and they were like, look at all these kids who are like doing chores and cooking, you know, unasked, just contributing. And I'm like, well,
Necessary
I mean,
labor.
they probably know to volunteer their time now. Like, I'm sure it was impressed upon them in some way. But yeah, I also don't know a lot of American 3-year-olds I would trust with a machete.
0.
I mean, like 0. Yeah. 0. trying to think of how many American 10-year-olds I would trust with a machete.
I'm trying to think of what I would trust my kids with, and the answer is nothing sharp. Nothing sharp.
Like, what about a pen? Or a pencil.
Pencil.
Like, you can do some damage.
You
Those
can.
are weapons.
Definitely
Do you
but
let
they
them
needed
have-
to do their homework, so they have some experience with actually just using it as a pencil. But they have no experience using knives for anything other than just destruction.
Do you, like, let them use pointy scissors, or do they have those plasticky, blunt kid scissors still?
I have no idea what their scissor situation is, I'll be honest.
Just such an absentee father.
桐生さん
Just going to
やっぱり
work,
大事だったんですね
then coming home, not paying attention
で
to the
もさっき
scissor
例
landscape
のお
of the
嬢ちゃん
house.
見かけたんですけどね
In my defense, my commute today was really bad, and my car has no air conditioning, and it's August in Virginia, so...
Wait, again?
なんか様子
No,
が
still.
変だったな
Still.
Oh, okay.
It's still August, and it still has no air conditioning.
なんか妙に寒いうつむ
You
いたま
should
ま歩いてたん
do
で
something about that.
I did. I took it to the shop, and they confirmed that, yep, your condenser is leaky. We'll need a new condenser. We don't have the part in stock. We'll order one. It's going to be here in 2
店の
weeks.
客に聞けば
So that was last week.
Fun, fun, fun.
Are you kidding me? I just beat you guys up. Fine, I'll beat you up too. See, I'm good at hitting people. Oh, you dodge.
Perfect timing with the comment about being good at hitting people.
Haruka should have dodged too. That's when I know she's a badass.
Look, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
It's so sad that I know that quote.
Like one of the few quotes you know. Alright, I'm gonna put another extension on my headphone extension so I can pet Tiny Cat some more.
Well, I know a lot of quotes. It's just that most of the quotes that I know are not from movies like that. Oh,
Never mind, I forgot that one is,
You're a little loud now. I'm gonna have to turn you down.
no! That shouldn't have changed anything. That's kind of amazing.
Shouldn't have. Certainly did.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that that one only had males on both ends, so I can't. So Tiny Cat's just staring at me angrily. Oh, duh. Okay. I'll just move the control puck closer to the edge of the desk because I'm a genius.
Oh, we're gonna play pachinko.
Yeah!
I mean, this is not pachinko, but
横に移動します
I will play pachinko next.
次はどこを狙いますか
Alright,
どう
Tiny
うまく
Kins.
狙えましたか
I missed, because I don't know what I'm doing yet.
自動で動きます
Alright, I got a Tiny Cat.
Yes, yes, I missed. Can I...
横に
I
移動
think
しま
there's
す
a
よく狙う
book
どこを
called
狙うかが
titled Pachinko up for an award this
うまく
year.
狙えました
Maybe.
か自動で動きます
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. I wish you would make some cute cries for the camera,
横に移動しますよく狙って次
Give
は
a
どこを
microphone.
狙いますか移動します
but you're too happy getting pets to make cries.
Pets and food and attention.
Yeah.
自動で動きます
Oh,
Oh,
it's just as disappointing as the real claw machines. It's such a good... Such a good...
such a good simulator.
進みます
We gotta do it again.
よく狙ってくださいどこを狙って移動しますうまく狙えましたか自動で動きます
Do I have him by his nutsack? Oh, I got 2 prizes! Woo!
Oh, wow! Congratulations on your prize out. Oh, I think you just held his hands. Maybe. You gonna press your luck now?
Well, I have 2 more turns that I have to use up, so...
Oh.
Really? That was kind of awesome. I dropped him on the other one. Let's do this.
So,
This.
there's a subreddit that collects 1-star reviews of books that are, you know, idiotic, called Bad Reads. And I've been just really enjoying it. I'm trying to think of some books that you might have read that
Ooh,
I can
that are-
read your reviews for. Have you read Picture of Dorian Gray?
I have not actually read The Picture of Dorian Gray. I really need to, but I have not read that one.
Do you understand the premise
Yes.
of The Picture of Dorian Gray? Okay. All right. So, because I don't think you actually need to have read The Picture of Dorian Gray in order to understand this review.
Okay, go for it.
All right. Ugh, why such high ratings for this book, and why is it considered a classic? I was not a fan. Maybe if there had been some kind of lesson, some realization that you can't be a jerk and ruin lives and still live with yourself. A life with no consequences, no morality does not exist. A life lived completely for pleasure will not end in happiness. That's literally the point of The Picture of Dorian Gray.
What did he read?
I don't know. Like, well, I was talking to another friend about it, and I'm like, maybe, like, he doesn't. Maybe he's just like so literal,
Right? It's
that he didn't understand.
he got away with it. He keeps
He got away
living.
with it all. But it's like, but he does. He so clearly does not. So it's just like, like, but yeah, because he was never like arrested for any of his murders or whatever. I guess he thought that meant that he got away with it.
Right. The justice needs to be earthly justice rather than cosmic justice or karmic justice or just your own misery with the world that you have helped create.
Yeah. All right. Have you read Metamorphosis by Kafka?
Kafka? No, but again, you can probably tell me and
You
I'm good to go.
understand the general premise?
Yeah, we're good to go.
You don't just wake up to find yourself transformed into an inexplicable physical form. Well, not for me. It doesn't happen. So I don't know what this was and why I read it. Just that it served well as an audiobook and kept me from sleeping at work.
Or ever.
I'm never reading it again.
I think that is the review of every college student who's ever actually read it, though. So I mean, he's something.
Well, yeah,
he's,
but it's like,
he's
I
on
was like,
something.
people don't just turn into cockroaches. 1 star. He's like the aliens from Galaxy Quest. He doesn't understand the point of fiction.
Explain as you would to a child. Which is actually something that I like quoting for myself. You know, explain it to me like you would need to explain it to a child, because I'm not following you right now. Help me out, because I need to just slow it down a little bit. Clearly, there's something here that I have failed to grasp. Slow it down.
Here we have Charles Darwin, The Origin of the Species.
Okay.
I love tagging this book fiction. That's the whole review. 1 star.
Fundies.
And then also one thing that's a theme on this particular subreddit is also making fun of anyone who gives Ayn Rand books 5 stars.
Okay.
And I know it's Ayn Rand. Just so let's see if I can find one of those. Oh, here we have Of Mice and Men. I don't like depressing writing. If I want to be depressed, I'll just think. I'm not gonna read.
That's a strange sentiment. Thanks, Date. Anyone else want to be brutalized? You do. Cool. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he's completely bent over backwards there. They're all in a pile. So yeah, those are some good, very fun reviews. I figured
Yeah,
you're like,
I mean,
I need
there's
to
a
find
lot of
some
them,
books in
like-
here that you've read that you like that I'm going to have bad reviews or something. Not classics, which is fine. That's still very entertaining.
Well, I mean, I picked classics primarily because, well, specifically ones that I read in school because was a higher chance you might have read it in school. Here's one. I want to finish Anna Karenina so badly, but Tolstoy is still on a 100-page rant about agriculture. I just want to get back to the juicy shit, goddammit. Very true, can confirm. Tolstoy hella obsessed with farming. And it's like, we all just want to, like, get to the affair part. Bring me some liquor! Have you seen a small girl?
So
Look,
let's
if you bring him something to drink, maybe you can reason with him.
Right, so I was like, well, let's try and threaten him first. That way I don't have to go back to a store. But yeah, now we're going to a store. I tried this before. I can't take out from here. I've done that before. Let's have a look at the map.
1984 by George Orwell.
Okay.
After reading this, it just makes you feel hopeless. Again.
Kind of the point.
You got the point.
Good job.
So, why don't you give it 5 stars?
Because it made me feel bad. I don't want to rate it highly because it made me feel bad. I can actually understand that, but, you know, good job, you figured it out.
Well, and I think this has something to do with, like, maybe, like the difference between people who are kind of, like, lean more towards agreeability versus people who lean more away from it. Like, maybe if you lean more away from it, you're more able to see that just because something's nasty doesn't mean it's praising nastiness.
Right.
Or something. So like, maybe people who highly prize agreeability, like, supposed to make them feel bad, they don't like that.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Like, you know, a test for that would be, do you think that Requiem for a Dream was a good movie or not? Because no one is going to watch that movie and feel good afterwards. But it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
I require liquor.
Oh, here we go. The Romantic Manifesto. I may have the most rational philosophical basis of thought to ever grace mankind. Her perspective on psychoepistemology opens worlds of understanding the judgment and action of man. As I read the Romantic Manifesto, all I can think is there is no convincing enough argument to promote the grandeur of this book. Nothing I could say to others could portray the urgency I feel for them to read this book. The description on the back of the book describes the Romantic Manifesto as one of the most important achievements of our time. I agree. Read it. You won't be sorry. And then the person who posted this to the subreddit also posted that this individual's Goodreads has no other philosophy book on it as having been read. So, which doesn't mean they haven't read any philosophy, but...
What's the name of that book?
The Romantic Manifesto.
Because that's not what I'm familiar with. So let me Google real quick.
I mean, I assume it's romantic in the sense of like the romantics.
Right.
I wonder if it's literary criticism.
Really, it's Ayn Rand. I didn't know this one. Huh.
Oh yeah, that's a 5-star Ayn Rand review that I was reading.
At the base of her argument, Rand asserts that one cannot create art without infusing a given work with one's own value judgments and personal philosophy. I disagree, but that's a reasonable thing to hold. You know, when you read Rand's books, you're definitely getting what Rand thinks. Even if the artist attempts to withhold moral overtones, the work becomes tinged with deterministic or naturalistic messages.
Okay, so I'm on the Ayn Rand website about this book. And it's like, Ayn Rand, born in St. Petersburg in 1905, recalls growing up in the last afterglow of the most radiant cultural atmosphere in human history, achieved not by Russians, but by Western culture. Wow. I mean, that's rough for poor Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. She's actually putting, like, this quote goes on to indicate that she thought that they were only good because of the French. Harsh.
Yeah.
Harsh.
Seems
that's real harsh.
Unlikely as well.
Well, so if you know a lot about Russian diplomacy, let's do a deep dive. I took a class called The History of Russian Diplomacy in college, so you're welcome. I'm going to give you the gist of it. Russia typically has a few choices for allies. There's Turkey, there's Germany, and there's France. And for some reason, they kind of always gravitated towards France until, like, the Soviets, you know?
Well, I think Napoleon has something to do with that.
Well, I don't think so, because they were gravitating towards France before the, like, there was a czar who thought the French were like the bee's knees and, like, made all the aristocracy learn French and speak French in court in Russia. So it goes back a pretty long ways.
It's definitely complicated, but, you know, there's a history where it's not always a lovey-dovey thing. I gave you the liquor, come on.
Saying that they always loved France. I mean, that whole Napoleonic period was definitely not fun times. Mostly for Napoleon. But also the French very aggressively pursued relations with Russia. Like, they sent ambassadors to Russia that were, like, pretty good at their jobs and things like that. But their history of diplomacy goes back to 1051. So, when Grand Prince of Kiev Yaroslav the Wise married the daughter of Henry I of France. That's a long fucking ass time. Russian feudal system was very similar to the French feudal system. You know, they had a lot of similarities. Even similar etiquette for, like, eating and shit. Like, it's a lot of cultural sharing, I guess. So, you know, of course, Dostoevsky and Tolstoy would have read Victor Hugo or whatever, which is what Ayn Rand is saying, that they read Victor Hugo and that's what made them good writers. If you've read Victor Hugo and you've read Dostoevsky, those are
very different.
They're so different. I mean, the mindset of the people who wrote, of the person who wrote Les Mis and the mindset of the person who wrote Crime and Punishment are, like, yes, there are some fundamental similarities, which is crime is bad, and you can be redeemed even if you've done something really fucking bad, you know, and that you have to choose redemption. But, like, that is the theme of so many books.
Yeah.
You know?
You can say, okay, they're kind of the same, and the styles are similar, and they have some similar ideas, even. But at the end of the day, yeah, those are hugely different authors and styles that have less in common than they do in difference, I'd say. I think that's fair.
Right. Yes. yes, there are similarities. You know, I'm not going to say Dostoevsky wasn't influenced by Victor Hugo, but to say that he's only a good writer, or that Tolstoy, in particular Tolstoy, is only a Chekhov, or, you know, I mean, there's not a lot of similarity between those writers and the French. But anyways, so yeah, she hated the Soviets, so I mean, there's probably some animosity that extends just to Russian in general.
Yeah, she had a lot of self-hate for her own culture at that point because she felt it was traitorous and had, you know, let the Soviets come in.
Yeah, and then she says this atmosphere evaporates in the 20th century, not from neglect but from nihilism. I mean, I'm not sure that's even fair, because
it wasn't neglect, though. It wasn't neglect.
It wasn't neglect, and it wasn't nihilism. I mean, if nihilism had completely overtaken it, you wouldn't have, like, the Gulag Archipelago or One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, and writer, you know, people who are literally, like, looking around themselves at how terrible things had gotten and still trying to write to bring it to the world's attention. That's not... Yeah, anyway, so her aesthetic theory and campaign for aesthetic renaissance is laid out in essays in this book.
So it's mostly a waste of time, is what I'm hearing.
In these essays, she argues that art is not a luxury but a critical need. I mean, that's, I think, true. On some level, like if we're talking hierarchy of needs, I'm not going to put it with air and food, but it's probably higher up than most people would think. Not a material need, but a need of man's rational mind, on which his material survival depends. Well, I mean, even people who lived in caves were scrawling on the walls. So it's something we have pretty much done from the beginning.
Are you going to take this bottle of sake and actually give me information this time?
Give him the liquor. What should I hand over?
This is the second bottle of sake.
Alright. Are you drunk enough yet to tell me where you've seen the little girl? I have a feeling this is not the way to solve this puzzle.
Yeah, either I need to bring him a third bottle, or I need something stronger than sake.
Like your fist!
Which is what I wanted to do. If I could just punch him right now, I'd be a lot happier. Why can I punch Haruko and not him? Why are there bad guys all over the place?
It's the patriarchy.
Well, we need to fuck the patriarchy.
I mean, like, are we gonna, like, fuck it, or are we gonna, like, fuck it?
Why not both?
Okay. Anyway, well, that was an interesting derailment. I had no idea Ayn Rand wrote a book of essays laying out...
Neither did I. That wasn't news to me.
Her aesthetic vision for the future. I mean, I assume it's French?
I think she was very pro-American, honestly. By the end, at least.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Probably. I mean, I don't know about culturally speaking, but certainly politically and economically.
Let's see if we can go to the grocery store if they have something stronger than sake.
Here's one regarding the girl with the dragon tattoo. I stopped reading this book at page 557. There were only 87 pages remaining, but I hate it. I don't want to waste another second more of my life reading it.
That's fair. That's actually very fair.
Yeah. I don't know if I would quit a book that was...
You've gone that far. Is it so bad that you don't want to take the last hour to finish it off? Yeah, you're gonna hate it, but
it wouldn't take me very long to read 87 pages, so I would just be like, all right, let's just fucking skim all this, anything, just skim and just figure out how it ends, and then we'll move on.
I didn't want to come to a restaurant. Somehow I ended up at a restaurant.
Oh, here, this is the one that talks about how it's like that. This is Atlas Shrugged, and it's the reviewer who's never read a single book of philosophy, at least per their Goodreads, who calls Atlas Shrugged a philosophical masterpiece and magnum opus. Look.
It's not a philosophical piece. It's a book of fiction that has a lot of philosophy in it, but it's fiction, not a book of philosophy.
But is it up there with Marcus Aurelius?
No.
But I don't know that anyone who...
Let's be clear, no one reads Marcus Aurelius anymore, and that's part of the problem.
That is probably part of the problem. No one's reading Marcus Aurelius, problem A. And then problem B is, like, people kind of go, I think in their 20s, can go through this, like... And I think it has a lot to do with brain development. You go through this phase where Ayn Rand is like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I just want to do what I want. Fuck everyone. I mean, I think that has a lot to do with like how the teenage brain works or the young adult brain works. You know, when it's impulse control.
Which is why you give the person who is in that mindset Ayn Rand in one hand and Lord of the Flies in the other.
Marcus Aurelius. Give him Marcus Aurelius. I mean,
that's a better choice, honestly.
People in their 20s. That's I think who he wrote it for. Someone in their 20s. Didn't he write it for like a nephew or a kid or some shit?
I thought it was for the soldiers, but that would have been guys in their 20s too. So I mean,
that would still, yeah.
Do you have something stronger than sake? You do. This sounds exactly like what I need. Let's see if this works. If this doesn't work, I'm Googling it, because I'm done.
Yeah. Alright, so this is Yakuza Kiwami, Chapter 7, Find...
Give the dude alcohol. Drunk guy.
Drunk guy. Okay, well, when you want to know the answer, I have it.
Oh, God. That's not heartening.
Don't worry, it's fine. It's fine.
Koike. Have a seat. I really sent him flying. So I went to try and go get a haircut yesterday. I haven't gone for a haircut due to quarantine. I'm like, yeah, we're social distancing and all. And a haircut is just not one of those things that is all necessary. So I'll wait. But my hair, I have not had a haircut in over 6 months. It is stupid long. So I went to go get a haircut yesterday. And the barbershop was closed. They were closing as I arrived. And they're closed all day today. So, still no haircut. It's very disappointing. I've spent like 5,000 yen on this guy now.
By the way, if you haven't read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, you can get like the Dover edition for like $1 a lot of places. So the Dover Thrift. Did you do Dover Thrifts at your college?
No. I know what a Dover Thrift is. So maybe they did and I just didn't know.
There are these incredibly shitty bind-ups of usually stuff that's in the public domain. And And they usually cost like $2 or $3 max, depending on how long they are. And yeah, they're just the Dover Thrift edition of classics. And
well, here's the thing about that then. I tested out of every single English requirement that I had.
oh, so you didn't have to take any. Yeah, well, in some.
Which is why I didn't read any of these books in college. I've read books in college, but they were not these.
Yeah.
Like, I read The Leviathan for my poli-sci courses, and I mentioned reading The Unbearable Lightness of Being for my poli-sci courses, which was stupid, but a thing. So, I read The Lord of the Flies in college, and I did a lot of independent, literature reading. That was fine, but it wasn't because of coursework.
Right. So, Meditations was something that he wrote for his own edification, almost kind of like a philosophical journal.
And I did read that in college as well, but
internal notes indicate that the book was mostly written for that purpose, and that it was unlikely he ever intended them to be published or seen.
That also makes a lot of sense. He was very aesthetic.
And that's probably why some of them are like almost like bullet journal style, like they're just a series of short sentences where it's like, because of this, then this, because of this, then this, because of this, then this, and then others are written in like paragraphs and etc. And he wrote it in Greek.
Of course.
Of course.
Because he was an educated Roman.
Yep.
Man, the classics were a good time.
I wonder if Ayn Rand read Meditations.
That seems unlikely, honestly.
It does seem unlikely.
Alright, I had a thing telling me that I was supposed to come this way, but I'm not seeing it anymore, so... To the children's park we go. Oh look, Date's stuck. Poor Date. How close can I get before he figures out what's going on? I guess now I'm close enough he doesn't want to run anymore. Get back to running. I'm easily amused.
So, here's a review of Taipei, A Peep at Polynesian Life by Herman Melville. By someone... It says, damn, this dude needed an editor. I can't be bothered to care about this until it's about 1/10 of its current size and twice as interesting. I loved Moby Dick and Billy Budd and refuse to believe the same man wrote this shit. You're telling me you fucking read Moby Dick?
That's what he's saying. I don't believe him if he's saying this.
And this is the book that made you think that Herman Melville needed an editor? You read 20 pages of guys jacking off a whale dick, and you weren't like, this is too many pages of guys jacking off a whale dick. you were like, no, this is fine. This is the exact right amount of pages of guys jacking off whale dick.
You gotta make sure you get all that sperm. Oh, well, we got oh, hold on. Thing shiny on the ground. Then I'll intervene. Alright, I got the key. It's time for an intervention. Not how this works. I'm the hero of this story.
That's right. Okay, so according to Goodreads, Taipei is 368 pages and Moby Dick is 654 pages.
It's Taipei, isn't it?
Well, it's not like, isn't that the guy's name? Not the Chinese city. Typee. I don't know.
Okay, I don't know. Yeah, I was thinking about a different book anyway, apparently.
Google. How do you pronounce Typee? I don't think that's true. I think you're lying, Google.
Well, what does Google say?
Type. Sounds made up.
Yeah. Let's get to the children's park.
I'm sorry. There are no matches for my search, and they suggested type instead. Like maybe I'm spelling type wrong.
Yeah, okay, I can understand that.
Okay, all right, fine, I get it. So that still doesn't answer the question. Unknown how to pronounce it. We'll just call it type. I don't think that's correct because there's two E's, but sure, whatever.
Well, the second E is silent, and so is the first.
I mean, it is French. It might be French. If it's French,
Type.
then
Could be anything.
who knows?
You could be pronouncing it John and be right.
Moby Dick or the whale. Twice as long, but obviously no wasted words there.
Man, this is frustrating. I'm in the park. I need to look. So now that I've looked in the park, now I can go back to Purgatory. So can I give you an author to search for a 1-star review?
Sure.
See if they have by Eric Flint.
Anything by Eric Flint?
Yeah, anything.
0 results for Eric Flint. Oh wait, I spelled it with a Y. Is it with an I?
It's an I, yeah. Flint.
I mean, I just had to ask because 0 is... Oh, not this guy!
What you got?
Which year do you want?
The first one.
No, I'm just on Goodreads looking at 1-star reviews. I didn't look on the subreddit, which would be more curated for like the dumbest 1-star
Right,
reviews.
which is what I was thought for, but I guess it's harder to search as well.
Yeah. Alright, hold on. r/bad reads. Okay, so let's maybe I'll just search the subreddit and get lucky. Their subreddit looks so much like Goodreads, I actually almost backed out of here because I was not sure I was in the right place. So good job to them.
Well designed.
Yeah. Right, Eric Flint. No results on r/bad reads, unfortunately.
Dang.
Yeah. That's too bad. That's too bad. I do have... It is showing up at other places. Question about rates of fire in Eric Flint's 1632. I remember some interesting quotes from Eric Flint's 1632 series about the rates of fire of minor weapon upgrades, especially with regards to cavalry charges. Does anyone know the quote, the math, or the quotes from the book series about the rate of fire dispersed versus blocks of riflemen and things like that? Wow. What the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about specifically.
Sounds like he's trying to do some math about how many people you can kill with how many guns or something like that.
That sounds like a question that you probably shouldn't be asking on the internet, generally speaking.
Well, even if you are, why are you asking specifically in regards to this book? Why not just Google it? For, like, in other words, because he says he wants to know, like, the dispersion rate between cavalry and blocks of riflemen and whatnot. So obviously, he's trying to figure out, like, he's probably writing a book, would be my guess.
Well, that's what he wants you to believe.
Okay, so what do we need to do? Let's go to Goodreads. I'll try to curate it for you. 1632 by Eric Flint, which has a 4.04 average rating, by the way. Which is
a 4 point what?
4.04.
That is way too fucking high.
Yeah, especially because that's high. Like, that's a good rating for Goodreads. You know what I'm saying? That's not even like... That's not just because Goodreads is inflated, but that's, like, good for Goodreads. So, I mean, Goodreads is inflated, but that still means that most of the people who read it liked it. And that's over 11,000 ratings. What the hell? Oh, man.
This book and this series are incredibly popular, but they're terrible.
Okay, well, let's go find the 1 stars. I've never been much interested in alternate history, but when I found one set in my favorite historical period of the 30-Year War, I could not help but give it a chance. To put it bluntly, I was disappointed both by the quality of the story and the depiction of the historical era.
Good, good.
The novel tells the story of a small U.S. township that is automatically transported back in time and place to the middle of the 30 Years' War in Germany. The Americans take this major cataclysm in stride, no crying over lost loves or other emotional outbreaks, and immediately start using their phenomenal skills to mold a new United States for themselves. Additionally, every single person in this township owns modern weaponry and cartloads of ammunition, and one Vietnam veteran has an M60 stored away just for such an occasion. Even cheerleaders turn out to be expert marksmen who murder soldiers of the Holy Roman Empire with wild abandon and ease.
Yep.
Okay, so this is really bad because I actually always thought the premise of this book was that people from, like, around the Revolutionary War went back in time.
Nope.
To the 30 Years' War, which is dumb enough. But at least the technology wouldn't be, like, so disparate.
No, it's
right?
totally disparate, and it's a massacre. It's exactly the massacre.
Of course. Of course. The characters posing as inhabitants of the area that the Americans conquer as their own are all very much taken by the American way of life immediately, and forget all about any religious beliefs, ethics, or values previously held.
Yep. It was remarkable, in fact. The sexual parts are intense.
17th century battle-hardened mercenaries, haughty nobility, and ignorant peasants alike renounced their entire belief systems in days once introduced to ice cream, cute cheerleaders, and American politics. Oh my god, of course nobility would be totally opposed to any kind of individualism.
Yes, it is one of my least favorite books that I've read all the way through, and it caused me to go on a real spiral on this guy, Eric Flint, the author, because it's such a popular book and it's such a popular series, and I've really picked out his books are all like this.
Well, and he goes on to say one of the most boring aspects of the novel is the fact that instead of focusing on how people from the future would fit into and adapt to this new world, because they're eventually going to run out of bullets, eventually going to run out of ice cream, eventually going to run out of, I don't know, electricity, what the fuck? Like...
Gasoline and diesel.
Gasoline.
But they found a way to make their own diesel out of corn. Which... Think about that one for a second.
Did they bring the corn with them? Like, where did they get the corn?
That's
1631.
That's what you should be asking.
Like, but did they bring the corn with them though? Like 1632. I mean, technically, they might know of the existence of corn, but surely no one's growing it in Europe anywhere.
Not in Thuringia.
Yeah. All right, let's see what else. Additionally, no thought is given to the time travelers happily killing the natives with no remorse.
They're not really people when they don't have our morals.
Yeah.
And they were going to die anyway. These people all died hundreds of years ago. So the fact that we killed them a few...
Says the author justifies it by saying that they're mercenaries anyways, and they're ruthless to begin with. But it's like but he says he forgets he describes his heroes as literal mass murderers. Killing vast hordes of people just because they can, with no mercy.
Run away if you don't want to be shot.
The idea behind this book immediately intrigued me when I read the back cover. Through some unknown phenomena, the town of Grantville, West Virginia... Oh, West Virginia.
Yeah, they're West Virginians too, so they're mountaineers.
Yeah.
So some of this is actually, there's elements where he actually does know portions of mountain culture, but not really well. He knows it well enough to make a mockery of it, essentially.
Yeah. How would the 20th century Americans cope? How would the 17th century Germans react? What sort of alternative history would result from this clash of cultures? Not one that's very compelling. The characters are all one-dimensional. The Americans hit the ground running with barely a moment to catch their breaths and set out making their collective and unified presence felt in a Germany caught up in the 30 years of war. This reviewer points out that the Americans have no disagreement amongst themselves, which doesn't sound like Americans, like as to how to proceed once they get to Germany.
There are a few disagreements when they're hammering out the new constitution that they're going to have, but the disagreements are so minor.
Yeah.
Vampire.
Really, someone should rewrite this, but with Floridians.
Now that would be an interesting book.
That would be. Come on. I'm gonna read the great Floridian novel this year. It's on my list. So, what a great opportunity to explore social pressures within two distinct societies, let alone the inevitable struggles between modern medicine and the plague, differing levels of nutrition and political values, different family structures and religious differences.
No, we're not going to do any of that.
None of that is in this book. After the brief initial shock of the town's relocation, a blue-collar hero emerges to save the day. The end. Struggle between two societies can't exist because America is the best. Their argument goes like...
But it's not even the best because they have to fix it. It would be the best if we were just fix it this one little bit. If we fix this one little bit, then it'd be the best.
Yeah, and the 16th century Germans just do it.
So this actually gets right back to Ayn Rand, because Ayn Rand was saying that you can't write a piece of fiction without it having tinges of the person's political beliefs in it. There is so much of Eric Flint's political beliefs all over this, and in so many bad ways. It is... Oh, it's just awful. Plus, then after he does this and he gets to be popular and famous, he's given a lot of editorial work. The people... he doesn't write this series anymore. Other people write it, and he edits it. Meanwhile, people are giving him books, classic books, like Fulmer's books and other classics of sci-fi, and saying, here, take this book that we think has a pretty good story, but we don't want to read anymore because it has ideas that we deem to be marginally sexist, marginally racist, or there's elements of a society and a culture that existed at that time that shouldn't exist in the future society, because the future society should look more like our society. So please balderize this fiction for us, so we don't have to look at people smoking in the future anymore. So he literally goes in and takes out all the scenes of smoking.
Wow.
And he makes a ton of money doing this, and it disgusts me. And I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. I'm going into purgatory, and then my trail goes cold. This is like when I was in the funeral, and the funeral was... Game! What am I supposed to do? You have to understand I'm talking and listening and not paying attention to your plot. I need that little arrow directing me. When you take away my arrow, I am lost. Please hold my hand.
I haven't been paying attention at all. So you went to Children's Park.
Yeah, and she wasn't there. We'll talk to Date. Date will help us out. Where are we going, Date? We can follow Haruka's trail by asking around. We have to get her before the Tojo clan does. Okay, so just talk to random homeless people. Gotcha. That is what he wants me to do.
Yeah, the walkthrough says, check out Children's Park to the far west side of town. You can use a cab. Trigger a cutscene. You'll be taken back to Stardust. Trigger another cutscene. Then you'll be in a fight against multiple men in black.
Stardust? I was nowhere near... I did not go back to Stardust.
Alright, maybe go back to Stardust and see what happens.
Yeah, because the pointer is telling me to go to Purgatory.
Oh. Well, hopefully this Stardust is the answer and not a typo in this.
Where's the walkthrough located?
Neo Seeker.
Okay.
I will message it to
In
you.
Public Park 3. Where's Public Park 3?
Yes, Public Park 3. Take a cab to 10
Okay.
Tenkaichi Street.
How do I get a cab? Are you a cab?
Call me a cab, man.
Completely unintentional, that's awesome. This is the first time I've taken a cab.
Alright, well, while you try and figure out how to get to Tenkaichi Street / catch a cab, see, we have... Oh!
Biden caught a cab.
You mean to tell me you're a Calvinist and can't absorb the concept of premarital sex? Just try it.
Wait, what?
There's an article here about a guy complaining about how the Jews are portrayed.
I don't remember any Jews in the book, so that's probably a bad sign.
Some issue with them being excommunicated for learning Arab philosophy and mooning over Iberians.
Jews, generally speaking, wouldn't be excommunicated for learning anything because they're already
I
out
think
of the
that's
church.
The person's complaint. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the person's complaint. He said this book is LARPer's prawn.
LARPers who love guns and want to shoot people. Not things and animals, people.
Actual humans. Nobody forms competing factions. No one gets into fights. No one has a culture shock moment. Anything needed to be known has a convenient SCA member or historian that just happens to know all about it, despite this being a town of yokel coal miners from West Virginia. Despite that, most of the people who read it love it.
Which is insane, right? It's one of the worst pieces of fiction I've ever read. that is, you know, not because of quality of grammar and stuff, right?
Right, like it's free from major errors. It's not incompetently written in the technical sense, but it's lacking all artistic or entertainment value. The 17th century townsfolk react to the appearance of Americans with little more than mild curiosity, which is crazy considering in the 16th century, I think the Germans were having an inquisition and burning witches left and right. So you would think they would at least try to do that.
We got guns and bullets, so
I guess that just solves the Inquisition problem. I mean, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition, but fewer people expect an M60.
only in that time period. I think nowadays you'd rather expect the gun than the Inquisition.
If I had to sum this book up in 2 words, it would be Murica fanfic. It has all the worst stereotypes of fanfic. The main characters are all perfect, amazing human beings, infinitely smart and talented at everything they do, with no flaws or inconvenient emotions to get in the way. They're all brave, stoic, wise, creative. They read each other's minds and are infinitely skilled with guns. Even the cheerleaders. I mean, the amount of times the cheerleaders have been mentioned.
The thing is, the cheerleader is actually a marksman. And this is a thing that's fine. You can have a cheerleader who is a marksman. That isn't necessarily the problem with the book.
Yes. And that could be an interesting character trait.
She is a legitimately good marksman and takes down the general from across the battlefield. And that's a fine scene. It was okay. You know, there's
even an interesting argument to be made about gender and how, like, she could have gone hunting with her dad, and why do you think cheerleaders can't gun? So. And
then, you know, there's also very interesting philosophical questions about, hey, okay, you're having this oh, ow, oof. You're going to have this kill the general across the battlefield decision. What does that mean? Well, that means you are sending your teenage cheerleader to, in the heat of battle, but still effectively cold-blood murder a guy who is not engaged in combat himself because he's leading the combat. This is heady stuff. And there's no repercussions. There's no, you know, she's like, I'm totally fine with this. Steady aim.
Well, and especially because, like,
pow,
I actually
dead,
know,
you know?
I went to college with someone who became a naval sniper, and, you know, we were all stunned when that's what they being the Navy, chose as his, like, job in the Navy, because he was, like, the sweetest, kindest, quietest, most peaceful person. But he was telling us that snipers are almost chosen, like, more on personality than anything else. So it's like you have to have a certain level of skill with a gun, but then mostly they're looking at a psychological profile.
Right. Can you do this without being destroyed by it?
Right.
So they don't want the sniper to have a breakdown in the middle of the battlefield. That's really bad for effectiveness.
Apparently there's a gang rape in the very first chapter. And when the men get through slaughtering the rapists, they just are like, she'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, the book is so problematic. And I read it before I got woker, right?
Right. So you thought it was problematic before your awakening.
Yes.
And then...
And to be fair, the book is loved by liberals. It's not people like me who like it.
Everyone in the American contingent. Well, I think that he does something smart by sending them to 16th century Germany, right? Or whatever, because no one's going to look at that period of time and think those people don't have some improvements to be made, even to the level of, like, West Virginia yokel standards, right? Like, the West Virginia yokels are assholes, but they're not burning women as witches. The other thing I'm just going to say is, I don't know how many people there are in this town and how much guns they have in this town, or how many guns they have or whatever.
I mean, typical American gun proportions, I'd say. So there's a lot.
Because well, and how contained even are they into any particular area? Like, they obviously never come to the attention of like the Eastern Europeans who were fighting the Turks or anything, because I feel like they could probably just still fuck them up. Like, I wouldn't want Elizabeth Bathory and her husband on my ass, even if I had 20th century weapons.
Right. It is middle of nowhere Germany, and and in the mountains as well. It just happens to be what was turning into a battlefield anyway for the 30 Years War. So there were actually battles.
Not a strategically critical area that a lot of people would be paying attention to.
No.
Yeah. So that's how he doesn't have to address any of the greater politics of
the actual war, which might have been interesting to discuss. No. Why is this war happening? No, there's just a war going on, which is actually kind of fair. That could have been an interesting point. No, we don't know why they're fighting. There's just a war. These nobles with their wars are always happening. No one tells us what's going on, and it's about religion, and we just want to be left in peace. Is that not? Why is that so hard? No, that's not a discussion that happens in this book.
With the exception of the last 100 pages, there's almost no plot tension at all. And there's very little interpersonal character conflict. The book is remarkably well researched, and it's all very believable from a technological and historical standpoint, but I didn't buy a single second of the very trite, corny dialogue and how everything always worked out exactly the way all of the major characters wanted them to. Yeah, I mean, guns... So guns are only going to get you so far. We kind of know from clashes with during the colonial period between more developed civilizations and more advanced weaponry and civilizations without it.
And it's not like they didn't have guns in this time period. They're just guns sucked. They were very unreliable.
You have an edge, but you're not. It's not like it can't be surmounted.
You have a good gun, and you're very accurate from a long distance with a couple of your people. But then in come the cannons, and now you're in trouble.
Yeah. Here's a review in Polish. I wish I knew what this person was saying. How much do I care? I'll translate it.
I've been shot a few times today.
You've been shot a few times?
Yeah, in the game.
It's fine.
Yeah, I just mashed the A button a few times when I get back up. And Haruka's been shot. She's actually bleeding, though.
Yeah, I mean, this person's making a lot of the same arguments of everyone else. Like, things are resolved too quickly. They have endless stocks of ammunition. Oil somehow suddenly doesn't matter or come to an end, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, we've hit the highlights of the things that are wrong with the book. There are a lot of them you could nitpick for quite a while. Pull up a 5-star review now, just to see what the other side is saying. Why do they love this book?
This is what I did when I finished A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I read 1-star reviews so that I would feel justified, and then I read 5-star reviews to try and understand them. Though, like, them being the people. And okay. What the fuck? It's literally not letting me only see 5-star reviews. Oh, I was in the wrong spot. Okay, here we go. Lauren rated it 5 stars. It is awesome. The West Virginians don't try to pretend that they're sorcerers or anything. They're just honest and maintain their American values. They quickly take charge of their situation and decide to help out the German refugees of the area with awesome results. The author is a trained historian, and this is the kind of book I would love to write if I had that kind of knowledge of 17th century politics and society. The reactions from characters on both sides just seem so real, all caps. Little details like the fact that Americans win most skirmishes mostly due to sheer rate of fire, that the 17th century men have bad teeth, and that visual details about a modern person would read differently to a 17th century person are just awesome. For example, take this scene from the middle of the book where the citizens of Grantville have made an alliance with the men of a nearby German town against the invading Catholic army, where Jeff, a slightly overweight D&D enthusiast, is acting as a scout and messenger and leaving on his motorbike. Oh god, okay, here we go. A moment later, Jeff was roaring off. He made it a point to do a wheelie as he passed a small group of young men standing by the road, the local toughs by their looks. They were suitably impressed, not so much by the acrobatics of the machine as the ferocious scowl on the face of the very large man who rode it. That and the odd but deadly-looking weapon slung over his shoulder, a sawed-off shotgun. Which, I mean, if you've seen a pike, how impressive would a sawed-off shotgun even be?
Like, what
Jeff
is that?
would have been
It's
quite
my
shocked and
boomstick.
utterly pleased had he known the impression he made on those bravos. They saw nothing of the shy young man in his leather-jacketed form, just a killer. The fact that he wore spectacles made him seem more dangerous. The better to see his victims, no doubt. Sounds awesome. A few chapters later, a different set of mercenaries, Scotsmen on the other side, run across this placard planted on top of what is a mass grave. We don't know who these murdering, raping bastards are that we put here. Don't much care either. If there are any more of you out there, be warned. This area is now under the protection of the UMWA. If you try to harm or rob anyone, we will kill you. There will be no further warning. We will not negotiate. We will not arrest you. You will simply be dead. We guarantee it. Go ahead and try us. The Scottish mercenaries try to brush up on their Polish because they don't know what UMWA means, and it sounds Polish to them. Umwa? And then this person is also talking about the educated Jews. So obviously you missed a whole Jew subplot.
Well, it's been like a decade, maybe even 15 years since I've read it.
There's apparently something. This person doesn't have a problem with it, but you know.
Well, I think we should leave it there. That book is terrible. That 5-star review is incorrect. We are justified.
This was for NPR's top 100 consideration for sci-fi concept novels.
Isn't that terrifying?
Oh dear.
Yeah. So stuff like that is what makes me lose faith in the speculative fiction community.
It's funny because like if you think about the sad / rabid puppies complaint, one of their main complaints was that the Hugo committees were getting too prestigious and nominating books that were too literary, and it was losing touch with its pulp roots.
This book is very pulpy. It's just not good.
It's like, this is the kind of thing that they would want to receive consideration, like for your consideration if you're going for pulpy, you know.
I think there's room for both, right? I love a good space opera. But one of the reasons why Lois McMaster-Bujold wins so many Hugos is that when she writes space opera, which is very pulpy by its nature as a genre, she does it with a story that is full of interesting ideas and technology that actually questions basic human motivations. And that means that this story does get both literary on some level, while still being an entertaining yarn. So you can satisfy both audiences with one book.
Yeah, I mean, I read a speculative fiction short story that was nominated for a Nebula or won a Nebula. And the premise was just that in this near future, the technology exists to change your race. And what kind of person would do that and why was more or less what was being explored.
Right, and so we sort of have questions about that going on right now. We see it happening with a couple cases. So look to the future. It's possible and even perhaps accepted. That's one of the things now. If someone tries it, it's not accepted. But it becomes accepted. You can see that happening. Well, then who is the person who wants to do it? Who is the person who feels out of the body dysmorphia of not their race?
Well, and what's interesting is because in the book, there's protesting over the existence and deployment of this technology. Of course, by people of all races, right? All races would be pissed that you could change your race because racial purists don't want people, quote unquote, looking like them who aren't like them or whatever. And then people who belong to, oppressed races don't want them, the answer to be like, just wipe yourselves out of existence and you won't have any more problems.
Or pretend you're like us when you're not because you haven't lived the my life experiences.
Right, or there's cultural, and then of course, yes, exactly. Like, there is a cultural difference between having lived and interacted with primarily black people your whole life and primarily white people your whole life. There just is, right? So, whatever. And so the main character works at this clinic. Like, the point of view character works at this clinic. The point of view character is clearly white, although it's never outright stated, but they are clearly white. And they are married to someone who is not of their race, and their child is multiracial. And the person they're married to is really pissed. And she's like, we're just giving people what they want. Like, no one has to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you should change your race. And then see if you can say you don't have to do this. And so that's what the book is about. You
can see that being an interesting story, but that's going to be on the literary side rather than the pulpy side. But it's not super literary, right? You can see that's... I think it's a very awkward book. I would probably find it to be problematic to actually try and tell a story like that. But somebody more talented or having lived with a different experience could possibly pull it off and make it good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's something a white man would...
Yeah, definitely not. Let's put it that way.
Want to be writing, unless they were an extremely sensitive person with a focus group to test things on. But
or brave and didn't mind being canceled for forever.
Right, exactly. So it's kind of interesting that, and my sister and I, we were talking about this, and I said the thing about being pissed that the Hugo is losing his pulp is really what's happening is that it's no longer denigrated as a genre by serious people and serious writers. And so serious people and serious writers who would have written literary fiction that wasn't science fiction but who have an affinity for the genre, that the genre now has enough respect that these types of writers are writing in it. And then that's, elevating it to some degree.
It can, but it depends on the authors. And I need to read more of it. I need to do a better job on my side of it, but I haven't seen enough evidence that those are the authors who actually are doing the right stuff. Maybe this gets to the point about the transformative fiction of the Booker Awards, and we ran down that list of Booker Award winners, and I was like, well, how many of these have I actually read, right? I read a lot, and I'd read one, and I'd heard of a couple more, so...
Yeah, and how
clearly literary fiction is not a thing for me.
Yeah, and how few of them had won... And of course, the Booker Award is supposed to be for, as you say, transformative fiction or revolutionary fiction or, something like to shake up the publishing industry.
Right, be something new and different rather than just a really good story like we've seen before. Something that is actually new to the environment.
Right, which is, and so few people who have won a Booker have also won a Nobel Prize for Literature, although there have been some who have won both. And again, Nobel Prize for Literature is a Lifetime Achievement Award, so, it's not the same thing.
And typically transformative, you're going to be doing this very early on in your career because that's just what you do.
Yeah, so off the top of my head, I know that Kazuo Ishiguro has won both. That's Remains of the Day, When We Were Orphans, Never Let Me Go.
Salman Rushdie, he's probably...
Salman Rushdie, if he hasn't won a Nobel Prize...
He ought to, and will soon enough. Yeah, I don't know for sure.
But he's definitely won a couple Bookers, including the Booker Lifetime Achievement Award. So,
YPod's joined us. Hi, YPod. Sorry for taking a second there to get to you. This has not been my favorite Tuesday. I had a pretty rough day with work today. But we played some Yakuza Kiwami. We're probably wrapping things up here. We got Haruko shot. Not our best day there either, honestly. I'm sorry you had late work stuff too. He was a contender for a Nobel Prize, but it doesn't look like he's won it yet.
Racism. I would just say that they may give it to him later. It's a different process. Like, you have to be, and he hasn't written. I mean, he has not written. He's not extremely prolific, I would say. Like,
right, he writes a couple of books a decade, tops.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, and because I actually have been looking at that list to see if I would maybe read some people like, there's people like Clarice Lispector that I'm just like, I mean, I should read at least one thing, but I just read the premises of the books, and I'm just like she has a book that's all about why would a woman need a cockroach. That's what she does. The woman needs a cockroach, and it's like, why would you do that? And that's what the whole book is about. Why would you eat a cockroach? And I'm like, do I care?
You don't just turn into a cockroach. We've discussed this.
You don't. 1 star. You don't just turn into a cockroach. At least not in my experience.
Sorry, Wipod. We're throwing back to a joke you weren't here for.
Yeah, sorry. I was reading him 1-star reviews of famous books where people wildly missed the point of what they were reading. And then we went on a deep dive where I was reading him 1-star reviews of this book he hates. And that ruined his life.
Well, the book did not ruin my life. And in fact, I will be potentially reading it again fairly soon. For reasons that are more complicated than I would like to get into right now. But I do not like this book very much. That is very, very fair. So.
Oh gosh, here's someone who's making in their 5-star review a joke about how they bring their modern technology with them, and then he's like, and nobody ever expects the Spanish Inquisition. Damn you, Jennifer Jones. Recommended to Jennifer Jones by hubby. Ugh.
Yes, we didn't get swept. I wasn't able to watch the game, but we won 3-2. Man, that's depressing. The Islanders. Ugh, I hate losing to the Islanders. Well, I'm tired. It's been a long day. I've got to go to work again tomorrow. They're making me go into the office much more frequently right now, and the traffic's really bad. There were like 4 accidents on the drive home today, so that drive home in the August heat with no air conditioning was really unpleasant. So I'm gonna go get some sleep and try and be productive so I can actually do some fun work.
Wait, fun work?
Yeah, like editing the videos to give us our highlights, because I'm way behind on that.
What part of your job is fun?
Oh, no, not my job. I do the job, so I have money to pay for the house and the food and stuff, so I can do the job that I find to be fun, like video editing. It isn't the most fun, but, you know, I enjoy it a lot more than my job, so.
You should try winning the lottery.
Yeah. There was a real consideration that this whole move to Seattle thing would involve me basically becoming a full-time streamer or something. It's like, I don't have a job out there. And one of the answers is, well, no one cares you don't have a job, just come anyway. I'm like, whatever.
It's not free.
Yeah.
It's not free.
Nothing's free. So.
Nothing's free.
I don't think it's going to happen. I don't want it to happen. I'm going to keep on working, but when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, all right then. That'll work until sometimes.
People are bringing up the Jewish experience in their reviews.
So I glossed right over it. It obviously either meant nothing to me, or I was like, yeah, that's fine. I can see how that's okay. But
yeah,
like I said,
it was
I read it before I woke up.
The egregious thing happening as far as historical faux pas were going.
And the guy's a historian, right? He knows better, or he ought to know better. Again, he's that kind of historian who's very comfortable balderizing. I am very, very uncomfortable with historians who are comfortable with balderizing.
Buy a house with bingo points, YPod suggests. That's a good one.
Yeah, I've already got a house, though, so I don't need to buy another one.
Well, use your bingo points to pay off your house. Oh, I should probably buy a house, but it seems like such a hassle.
Well, I mean, before you do, there are a couple things I can recommend from my own experience. First,
like not buying a house.
Yeah, no, there are benefits. I like being a homeowner. I like it a lot more than the alternative, but it's not all sunshine and daisies. So I'll point you to some of the things that I learned the hard way, and that would hopefully help you not have experience like that. Who knows?
I mean, one of the biggest things is that, you know, in Florida, the majority of your tax burden comes from being a homeowner. You know, like, as a renter, yes, you know, like, you are subsidizing at least the homeowner's taxes, but
right,
you know, they're for real down here. They're no joke. So.
Well, I mean, that's a reason perhaps not to buy a house in Florida. You're pretty unattached, so you guys could move anywhere.
Well, that's also a reason not to buy a house. Like, because even though I like living in Florida just fine, I don't know if this is the part of Florida I want to live in forever. You know, like, I definitely, I move a lot, obviously, more than the average person. But, I mean, I have regretted very few of my moves, including moves that I was like, I'd rather die, you know, and end up loving. So, because I find exploring places more interesting than not, I guess.
See, if
I don't know.
I move to Seattle, I'm just going to stay in my house all the time anyway. Nothing's going to change.
Yeah, I mean, you could live in a rock cave on the moon as long as it had internet.
My ideal house, you know, when I was telling my wife where we were going to live, is like, what's your ideal house? A cave in the desert that has a good internet connection. And that didn't go over very well.
Yeah. Well, you'll probably end up getting dragged to Seattle kicking and screaming at some point.
Well, it will be kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
I can promise that.
Maybe wait until it doesn't have any autonomous zones.
Or make sure it has a really big autonomous zone.
Or make your own autonomous zone.
I like that one.
Yeah. Lots of options.
Too many, in fact. We should narrow it down.
Yeah. All right, well, just take a page out of 1632.
Just go in armed.
And just go in with all the guns.
And make my own diesel fuel out of corn that I've grown some miraculous way.
In West Virginia coal mines.
And Thuringia in the 17th century.
Yes. Like, even if you had corn from, like, the 20th century, like, corn seeds, and you managed to plant it, and even if the climate would support it, it would still die of some kind of disease immediately. Like, there's no way it's resistant to the blights of the 16th century or whatever.
Yeah, the book is... I can't even say it's a mile wide and an inch deep, because it's not even a mile wide. It is an inch deep, and probably about 3 meters across.
This is the kind of historical fiction that kept me running to the computer to look up the actual history. When I could manage to put the book down, that is.
There's a lot of women getting slapped in this game.
Well. Oh wow, there's people talking about the book right now in the message boards.
Like I said, it's 4.04 out of 5. Clearly, I'm in the wrong here.
You're the wrong one.
I'm used to being the wrong one. I'm always the... I have my opinions. I'm sticking with them. I don't care if
I'm
they're
sure
wrong.
if I read this book, I'd be like, this is a masterpiece. I don't know what Kronos was talking about. I'm sure that's not correct.
I imagine you would hate it.
It sounds like something I would despise on
But
every level.
would you hate it more or less than me? That's the real question. And
Probably
I don't know.
more because I'm actually a history major.
But there's a lot of politics in there, and I hated the politics a lot.
Oh, well, because, like, remember when I read that Bohemian novel about that prince that was, like, such a fucked up jackass that his dad imprisoned him?
I do recall that, yeah.
His dad was the Holy Roman Emperor. And I'm like, this is so unrealistic. They would never imprison a prince. And then I Googled it, and I was like, holy shit! Like, they locked this guy up. Like, imagine how bad you have to be.
Well, he
He's
did.
the son of the Holy Roman Emperor, and he's such.
I remember talking about this story. He did some remarkably messed up stuff along the way.
Like, yeah, definitely, like, to the point where his dad was like, all right, you got it.
Enough. I've had it.
You're
I'm cutting you off. We're
Yeah.
cutting you off.
Yeah, you have to
No
live
more
while you-
women.
Going into it, stop cutting up laundresses. Yeah, that was really interesting. Look at me, you know, he's kind of like to read something like that was so well researched. I don't know.
I do not recommend this book to anyone. And yet, in the past month, I have recommended it
Accidentally.
too many times. Like, I've talked about it too much. For some reason, the book is in my psyche this period, and I think it's partially just the insanity of this year is making me go a little bit crazy.
It's all the autonomous zones. That's what's happening. One of the reviews that is a 1-star review just says, this is why I don't read Bane books. Which is the publisher. Apparently the whole publisher is off limits now.
I think that's fine. Okay, you know, sometimes you just gotta nuke it from space to make sure.
Like, I no longer buy anything put out by this publisher because
clearly they have some judgment issues up top.
Clearly, there's nothing. I'm looking at the publisher's website now, and I recognize 0 of the books that are front and center on their landing page.
Well, it's, you know, it's older stuff. I gotta see what I've read. I'm sure a bunch of Bane books.
They have Larry Correa, Destroyer of Worlds, on here, and I feel like maybe I've heard that name before, but like nothing is familiar.
Of course, I'm gonna have to go back like 20 years to find the stuff that I'm most familiar with.
Oh, they have a free library. Is 1632 in it? No. Aww.
It is available for free on Kindle, though.
Oh, how lucky for me.
Remember, just because it's free on Kindle just means you have to delete it later on.
It just means I have to delete it later on. It's true. I just did a video all about, like, in an effort to, like, deal with my consumerism caused by Kindle Daily Deal emails, I made myself make a list of every single book I spent money on in 2020, and I'm forcing myself to read all of them before the end of the year.
All right, so
If for no other reason than to say, stop spending money on books.
they have James P. Hogan. He's a great author. They have David Weber. He's very pulpy and does fun stuff. It's fun pulp. He's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not good, but there's nothing wrong with it, right? That's the kind of stuff my wife loves to read. It's the science fiction she actually reads. So,
Wow,
Mercedes
he's written a bunch
Lackey.
of these. He's at least up to 1637.
Remember, he doesn't write them anymore. He edits them.
Oh, right. I see Charles Gannon is writing them.
More David Weber, Charles Sheffield, L. Neil Smith. How the hell does L. Neil Smith get on the same publisher as Eric Flint? That makes no sense!
Well, that's why this guy's not reading any of that shit anymore.
Well, L. Neil Smith is entertaining, at least. Harry Turtledove. There's a definite style to these books, though. Lois McMax Bujold. Civil Campaign was a Bane book, apparently.
Oh. That's
So-
probably her worst book she's ever written.
That was okay. I like that one.
All right. I'm going to add an Alice Munro book.
James Doohan was writing science fiction under Bane at one point.
Ooh.
He
I'm
was.
going to read
He had help, but it. Scotty!
Dear Life.
Dear Life?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that is.
It's a short story collection by Alice Munro, who is, per Wikipedia, the Chekhov of Canada. Which, I mean, that's just to say that she's the best short story writer in Canada, is I assume that is what that means. Or in Canadian history. I mean, you could just say that, though. But
David Drake and Eric Flint in The Tide of Victory. Oh, most of these look so bad. How on earth does this still... like,
look, you should just write a book and get Bane to publish it because they obviously have no standards or taste.
well, they have a very particular standard that I can't meet.
You should write a book called 1492 about, instead of being about Columbus, it should be about, like, Mexico City getting dropped in the middle of, like, Castile. You would probably win a prize for that.
I think that that's a really bad idea.
I mean, you're white, so maybe you shouldn't, not being Mexican. But still, like, that's... Someone could win an award for a book with that premise.
I've read this book. This was garbage.
Well, it's a Bane book. I mean, I learned today that those books are all trash.
But I'm telling you, no. Lois McMaster-Bujold is a Bane-published author, and she's fantastic. So not all of them, just like 80% of them seems legit. 80% of them are complete garbage. I had no idea. I have learned today as well.
I actually can't imagine how bad a book would have to be for me to have so much animosity that I would never read anything by that publisher again.
Well, I mean, if it's legit, like... What the hell is this? I'm gonna show... I gotta put this up onto the stream somehow. This is...
The tagline for the book on Amazon is the ultimate Y2K glitch. For the Ring of Fire, book 1, which is 1632.
Let's see if I can do this. Okay, that's not gonna work. We gotta do this. Let's save this. And then pull this.
Wow, the ultimate Y2K glitch. Man, I hope they make this into a TV show. They could totally fix it and save the premise.
So this is the cover of one of Eric Flint's books.
It should be on Fox News.
There's
The
so
channel.
much. There's so much wrong here. There's so much wrong here.
I can't see it. Which one should I be looking at?
The Grantville Gazette, Volume 1.
Grantville Gazette, Volume 1. Ugh. Oh wow, the Ring of Fire.
I'm gonna
Are
get
you
rid of
looking
this
at the one
now.
with the naked Lady Liberty, or are you looking at the like?
Well, she's not a naked.
old-timey-
She's not a naked Liberty, but she is distressingly unclothed, draped in the American flag, cheerleader carrying pom pom and baton. This
I'm
is our
looking at one
sharpshooter.
where she's like an older lady and has cellulite, but she's wearing a flag. Oh yeah, did you see the frying pan?
I haven't had a chance to see the frying pan. My weekend was really kind of very messy. That was Saturday anyway, so I've had so little time.
I did show Mr. Des the frying pan. So at least Mr. Des got to appreciate the frying pan's timing.
Alright, I'm done with Eric Flint. I can't handle it anymore.
You should just go smoke some weed. You'll feel better. Oh wait, you can't. It's not legal where you live.
Alright, we've rambled far too long.
Fine.
It was entertaining,
Ha-
but I do
Have
need
a
to
good
go
night,
get some sleep.
everyone. Be sure to read Kronos' favorite book, 1632 by Eric Flint,
The Bastard.
by visionary brain genius Eric Flint.
He's a brain genius. That's the thing.
Good night.